The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
Very exciting indeed, and not less exciting story of Eleonore De Kemularia. Two important reasons to showcase this first story of many more to come. First, it is 100 years of Georgia-French relations, and Clod Kemularia was the member of the first immigration wave. And secondly, this is the start of BMG's cooperation with speech. From now on, the Checkpoint will also be able to present very interesting stories and provide motivational, inspirational business speech. Here is the first story.
Terrorism has no excuse whatsoever, but the problem is difficult.
The United Nations in New York, on the eve of the opening of its 16th Assembly session, is plunged into mourning upon the passing of Dag Hammarskjöld. More than 8 years ago...
Clod Kemularia was a banker and a diplomat. He was François Mitterrand's trusted person and a negotiator with the Arab countries. He also served as France's permanent representative and ambassador to the United Nations in the 1980s. He was also an advisor of the Bank Paribas CEO for International Affairs from 1968 to 1982. He was also a special advisor to Prince Rainier of Monaco, and he was also a member of the board of directors of the French fashion company Inarici. He wrote a book in 2002 called Une vie éternelle, which was also translated in Georgian. My name is Eleonore De Kemularia. I'm the granddaughter of Clod Kemularia, and I've been living in the US for the last 10 years. My grandfather could be a little bit tough on us when we were growing up. Obviously, he was very well known internationally. He had the most enviable positions, in his career. So there was a lot of pressure on us as we were growing up to succeed and carrying on his legacy. Looking back on all this, I appreciate all of his, teachings around this. And I know that today when I have, professional events where I meet diplomats and important peoples, his teachings and his ability to push me and be very curious in the world is helping me today meet people and talk about different issues in the world. One of his first advice was listen before you speak. And that's how, when we were little, we would listen before we would have any opinion. Because when you listen, you first learn. And if you are going to talk, then make sure that you know your subject by heart. That was, I think, one of the biggest advice from him. Resilience, hard work. Obviously, if you want to achieve something in life, you need to put in the work. It's not about being a genius, it's about working hard. And I think everybody who knew my grandfather could say this about him, that he was incorruptible, and that's why he was able to achieve a lot of different things in his life. One of the things that he was able to achieve that a few men did in his lifetime was being able to bring, Israel as well as Palestine together at negotiations tables with his Club de Monaco just for that particular reason. So for me, in my life, my last name is the most important thing. I went once to Georgia, actually to Tbilisi, when my grandfather was very lucky to do so and to travel with him. One of the other things that I would do was actually he would take us to the Georgian Ballet in Paris every year, so I was very lucky to see all the dances. I have to say that my grandfather was so very much proud, considered himself as Georgian. He was actually a little bit disappointed not to speak the language. And I have to say, I fell in love with the dancing and the polyphonic as well. So I'm very proud to say that I have a Georgian heritage. Like my grandfather, as I was telling you, had a very international career. I wanted to follow in the same footsteps, working for the French government. I wasn't a diplomat, but I think I did a little bit of my part. Basically, we help facilitate French companies and French industries grow their footprint worldwide. So it was really facilitating business between the US and France. And now I work in something that I'm very passionate about, which is the innovation ecosystem. I used to work in startup acceleration programs where I would help mentoring them in order to get investment and to scale their business. The company is called Village Insights, and I'm very proud to be working with them and making that plunge into working in full innovation and in the full tech community, and basically launching myself in the startup world. So what makes a startup successful? A lot of people who are being first-time founders have a really hard time sharing their ideas of what their startup is going to be about, and because they're scared that their people are gonna steal the idea. But it's not really that. It's not about stealing the idea. What makes a startup successful is execution, execution, and execution. Everybody can have ideas, but if you don't have the execution, nobody's gonna, you're not gonna have a profitable startup. So in order to have that execution, you need to have a really good team that is motivated. So hiring and having the first, 1, 2, 3 founders who are motivated and passionate about what they do and are gonna be able to execute on the plan and the playbook, that's what really is important. In order to succeed in the US, I think you have to be very passionate about what you do, but also be very tech savvy and have skills that are in innovation, in IoT, in healthcare, whether you're a doctor, you're a data scientist. Those are the functions that Americans are looking for. If you're looking to more work in support functions like marketing, HR, those are typical jobs that are usually in traditional field in the US by local Americans. But also network. Don't be afraid to reach out to people through social media platforms like LinkedIn or other types of professional platforms where you're actually asking for advice and connections. In America, it really works about who do you know and what you can offer to the country. Because it is a chosen immigration, you need to develop those skills that you have, and you also need to develop your social skills by making yourself reaching out to people, and basically you will find a community that suits you. Resilience, hard work, and a fighting mentality. But obviously I know that the Georgian people do possess all of these qualities.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.